Paul R. Mchugh was educated at Harvard College and Harvard Medical School with further training at Brigham and Women's Hospital, Massachusetts General Hospital, the Institute of Psychiatry, University of London, and the Division of Neuropsychiatry at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. After his training, he was eventually and successfully professor of psychiatry at Cornell University School of Medicine, clinical director and director of residency education at the New York Hospital Westchester Division, professor and chairman of the Department of Psychiatry at the Oregon Health Science Center. He was Henry Phipps Professor and Director of the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and Psychiatrist-in-Chief at Johns Hopkins Hospital from 1975 to 2001. The Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine named him University Distinguished Service Professor in 1998. Dr. Mchugh was elected to the Institute of Medicine National Academy of Sciences in 1992. In 2001, he was appointed by President Bush to the President's Council on Bioethics, and in 2002, by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops to the National Review Board for the Protection of Children and Young People. He has written articles on psychiatry in the American Scholar, the Wall Street Journal, Commentary, the Weekly Standard, the Chronicles of Higher Education, and the Baltimore Sun. Dr. Mchugh, thank you so much for being with us today. Tell us, how did you become familiar with this case against Dr. George Tiller here in Kansas?
Well, I became familiar with it because I was called by Attorney General Klein and asked if I would look at the records and to see whether I could confirm or reject the idea that those records demonstrated that the women involved in the abortions were in danger of suffering a substantial and irreversible impairment if the pregnancies continued, impairment of a psychiatric kind. Since I'm a psychiatrist, he asked me to look at it from that point of view. And so I was sent a sample of records and looked them over and wrote that I didn't think that those records supported the idea that these women were likely to suffer a substantial and irreversible impairment, which was required by law here in Kansas for their abortions, since they were late-term abortions. And that's how I became involved in these matters.
What exactly were you hired to do in looking at them?
Yes, well, I was hired, as I said, to look at the records as they were available, to see whether I could concur from those records that these women were in danger of suffering a substantial and irreversible impairment of a psychiatric kind that could justify a late-term abortion. And so I was to look at these records from the point of view of whether they were adequate to develop a diagnosis, whether those diagnoses so developed were of a kind that represented a substantial and irreversible impairment, and that whether the abortion was a way of solving that problem, and whether, in point of fact, at some level, this constituted adequate psychiatric justification for the procedure that was being proposed.
So, Doctor, you were looking at all of these records. Did you or could you ever determine the identity of the patients? Would you be able to give me names right now?
No. The names and some of the vital details in the sense of them were not available on those records. Those were redacted out, so that the point was not to identify them as a particular person, but to identify the state of mind that they were in and the examinations that were performed and the adequacy of those studies to reach the conclusions that the doctors had reached.
So you saw no names, and you wouldn't be able to identify these patients. In your opinion, there is no privacy concern here?
No, there was no privacy concerns, and in the sense that identifying the people. And by the way, there wasn't an awful lot of a private nature that was in those records, other than the state of mind and feelings that the young women were expressing.
And who was with you? Was it a private review?
It was a perfectly private review, just me.
Okay. Now, let's talk about what's currently happening right now. The new Kansas Attorney General, Paul Morrison, he has stated that he is actively investigating Tiller, and he even has an assistant attorney general on this case full-time. Has anyone from Mr. Morrison's office or Mr. Morrison himself tried to contact you?
No, he hasn't.
And you were hired by former Attorney Phil Klein as the expert state witness, is that correct?
Yes, I was hired to provide expert testimony as to the records, and I wrote an affidavit to that effect. Mm-hmm.
Did you know that after Mr. Morrison took office, he was going to continue the investigation?
I had no idea what was going to happen after I had turned in my affidavit.
Were you expecting a call from his office?
Well, I expected I might hear from somebody.
But you never did?
I never did.
What are some of the reasons? I want to get specific here. What are some of the reasons given by the mothers for these late-term abortions? And we are speaking about abortions after the 6th month of pregnancy.
We're talking, 26 to 30 weeks into the pregnancy. Well, the mothers were expressing great senses of distress and worry about their future. They were tearful and preoccupied with the idea that only an abortion would help them. They said that they were sad and frightened, and they spoke about fears that their future life would be changed. They expressed ideas that they were not being given adequate support, and that they felt that the abortion would help them.
Now, I know, Doctor, as you reviewed some of these records and these files, you were able to take summaries and take notes. And if at any time you'd like to refer to those notes, please feel free to do that. You talk about the fear of lifestyle changes. Can you be specific and talk about what some of those might have been?
Well, remember, most important, Megan, to appreciate is that these records that I was shown were very inadequate psychiatric records, okay? They were not thorough, detailed, pages-long understandings of the biographies, backgrounds, states of mind, and particular directions that these young women were suffering from. There was no clear work in those records that would be construed as capable of giving you a full picture of the mental condition of these women. Okay? They highlighted certain kinds of things which, out of context, were hard, of course, to appreciate, but were sometimes of a most trivial sort, from saying that I won't be able to go to concerts or I won't be able to take part in sports, to more serious ones, such as I don't want to give my child up for adoption. But at no time could you see and understand the future of these individuals and in what way they should be seen as full people, people capable of being helped in the situation. Rather, they were highlighted for certain kinds of, preoccupations and concerns. Some of them would be construed as trivial, and others would be construed as serious. A trivial one would be not being able to go to a rock concert. A more serious one would be to say, I'm going to be worried about the life of this child later on in life. But notice, I could pick out only bits and pieces of this. This is not a none of them represented a full psychiatric history.